Amazing.
Now folks, hope we're enjoying World Book Day.
Hey!
I'll start off, I won't read something on my own, I'll read something from a favourite book of mine. It says Alexander Cordell's The Fire People.
Oh, I like that.
It's Alexander Cordell, he lived in Blaine Harbour. He was born out in Asia somewhere, I think. Thailand, I think it is. Anyway, he wrote a book called The Rape of the Fair Country about the Chartist uprising and Force to Rebecca, and another one of my favourites, The Song of the Earth, which is about the building of the Neath Railway. And this one, The Fire People, which is about the Merthyr uprising. So you're going to read a short extract from that, not about the rising, but about one of the characters called Gideon, who is a blind fiddler. He lost his sight in an industrial accident, but in this passage he's walking on the mountain and he turns to face the sun, and I think it's great sort of poetic prose. Gideon knew exactly where he was going and the direction he was taking, for these were the tracks of his childhood. This took him up the Drown Road and past the Balance Pond to the Conch, Pillows Mound and Brombill Pit. Remembering Mavis Samuel, he stopped turning in the early sunlight to face down on Taibach, which he loved. Even death in this particular town had its humour, he reflected. Only in his beloved Taibach could Mimi Goldie's flowered hat be buried as a floral tribute. And he recalled with a sudden impatient joy the colliers thronging down the narrow streets of Pyle and the hostile crags of Kenvig Castle outlined against the stars. Taking a deep breath, he slowly turned to face the sun. The red surge of light illuminated the blood of his eyelids, and he saw crimson. A spectrum of diverting colours flashed and gleamed. Deliberately, he momentarily opened his eyes to glare until the tears ran down his cheeks. But he was smiling. It was as if a light was beginning to glow within his head. Gradually, he saw a great canopy of gold and misted images of racing blue and purple as the mountain grew into shape about him. Out of the astonishing brightness, fraught with pain, there slowly painted on the retina of his eyes faint colours of green. This was the heather. And then he turned down on Taibach, seeing a flowing maze of crammed houses. The crazy winding streets fed slowly out before him with a new, conspicuous clarity. He could have cried aloud with the joy that he could momently see. Then the vision faded, the blackness fell with obliterating speed. Dropping to his knees, Gideon put his arms over his face and waited for the surging pain. Had he opened his eyes above the red coals of a forge and struck white, hot iron sparks, could have caused no less agony. And he knelt enduring the penalty for the momentary sight. The tears welled through his fingers and ran in hot streams down his throat, but he endured this pain in silence. There grew within him an almost ungovernable elation as he rose. He could have shouted aloud with joy. Not only had he seen the mountains this time, but the streets too. For a long time he stood with his eyes closed, allowing the wind to dry his face. Then he put his fiddle under his arm and his bundle over his shoulder, and he took the track through Quarry Dip to Marthley Mountain. That was one of my favourite books. And, now we have some music about this time, so Norman,
Do you want to try it on your...
Don't spoil it now. Let's not stop it now.
Okay, you just
Okay.
two songs?
yeah.
Yep.
this is a song about the valleys that, as they were. I hope the new generations don't forget their heritage, that the valleys wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the mining industry. And there still is a tradition of male voice choirs, but it's probably true to say that the heyday has passed. So this is reflecting on the mining heritage, and particularly the male voice choirs. Silurian footsteps, where Roman legions have trod. Lost tribes beckon me on, as standing stones seem to nod. When my soul is troubled, and I wonder at the point of it all, I need to wrap the valleys around me like a shawl. The harmony of the colliers soothe me with custody. How can men so strong sing so mellifluously from deep underground, with the dust and the heat pour? They emerge to the valley's clutch like a shawl. The music of the valleys is sung in an immigrant song, from the Ukraine to Italy, bringing their richness to the throng. As the thick curved mountains, like a rainbow waterfall, giving sweet warmth like a shawl. People come and go, but the valleys still remain. They are in my heartbeat, each artery and vein. When the time comes for me to heed the final call, I will wrap the valleys around me like a shawl. Thank you. This is a song for everyone who's known the joy of having the companionship of a dog. It's a song for dogs. It's called Best Friend. Oh boy, you can't get better than that. A friend who lifts you up when you're feeling flat. Someone who knows what you're thinking
if I needed to read has been read so many times it's fallen out. So I downloaded it.
Oh, I'll read that.
To me, books also bring back memories. They remind you of a time in your life and something that was going on then. And one of my favourite moments when the children were growing up was that time at night when you take them to bed, you've had a bath, they dried, you put them into bed, you read them a story, you do a few rhymes and then they fall off to sleep as you read into them. So what I'm going to try and do, I don't sing very well, okay, so please forgive me, is The Owl and the Pussycat. Because my children, no matter what I read to them, up until, even when they were reading themselves, they wouldn't go to sleep until we done The Owl and the Pussycat. And that's why the page fell out of the book. Join in, please, if you know it and want to join in, help me out. The owl and the pussycat went to sea on a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a £5 note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang on a small guitar. Oh lovely pussy, oh pussy my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, you are. What a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the palm trees grow. And there in the wood a piggy stood with a ring at the end of his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon. And hand in hand on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon, They danced by the light of the moon. And the other one they liked was the tiger. Oh, yeah. And you all know this one, I'm sure. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of my heart? And when thy heart begin to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dead grasp, dare its deadly terrors grasp? When the stars threw down their spears, the waters, heavens, with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry?
So you did?
Oh, thank you, that's just my page finder.
I read a bit from Laurie Lee, Cider with Rosie. Probably my favourite book. I've read it about 5-6 times.
Yes, it's lovely.
So I'll start off. The first chapter is called First Light. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I was set down from the carrier's cart at the age of 3. And there, with a sense of bewilderment and terror, my life in the village began. The June grass amongst which I stood was taller than I was, and I wept. I had never been so close to grass before. It towered above me and all around me, each blade tattooed with tiger skins of sunlight. It was knife-edged, dark and a wicked green, thick as a forest, and alive with grasshoppers that chirped and chattered and leapt through the air like monkeys. I was lost and didn't know where to move. A tropic heat oozed up from the ground, rank with sharp odours of roots and nettles. Snow clouds of elder blossom banked in the sky, showering upon me fumes and flakes of their sweet and giddy suffocation. High overhead ran frenzied larks, screaming as though the sky was tearing apart. For the first time in my life, I was out of the sight of humans. For the first time in my life, I was alone in a world whose behaviour I could neither predict nor fathom. A world of birds that squealed, of plants that stank, of insects that sprang about without warning. I was lost, and I did not expect to be found again. I put back my head and howled, and the sun hit me smartly on the face like a bully. From this daylight nightmare, I was awakened, as from many another, by the appearance of my sisters. They came scrambling and calling up the steep, rough bank and parting the long grass. Faces arose, familiar, living, huge, shining faces, hung up like shields between me and the sky. Faces with grins and white teeth, to be conjured up like genie with a howl, brushing off terror with their broad scoldings and affection. They leaned over me, 1, 2, 3, their mouths smeared with red currants and their hands dripping with juice. There, it's all right. Don't you wail anymore. Come down home and we'll stuff you with currants. And Marjorie, the eldest, lifted me into her long brown hair and ran me jogging down the path and through the steep rose-filled garden and set me down on the cottage doorstep, which was our home, though I couldn't believe it. That was the day we came to the village, in the summer of the last year of the First World War, to a cottage that stood in a half-acre of garden on a steep bank above a lake, a cottage with 3 floors and a cellar and a treasure in the walls, with a pump and apple trees, syringa and strawberries, rooks in the chimneys, frogs in the cellar, mushrooms on the ceiling, and all for 3 and 6 a week. I didn't know where I lived before then. My life began on a carrier's cart which brought me up the long, slow hills to the village and dumped me in the high grass and lost me. I had ridden wrapped up in a Union Jack to protect me from the sun, and when I rolled out of it and stood piping loud among the buzzing jungle of that summer bank, then I feel I was born. And to all the rest of us, the whole family of 8, it was the beginning of life. So I'll leave it at that. I'll read a story of my own. A story from Mrs. Moon, The Haunting of Hemlock Hill, in 10 years old, as normal. Well, it's become normal. And milk monitor. A story from Mrs. Moon, The Haunting of Hemlock Hall. My name is Stephen Orange, and I'm a serious person, so everyone calls me Serious Steve. And I have a serious job. I am a top-notch investigator for the head department of paranormal activity and unexplained phenomena in supernatural places. And I got the job because they wanted a #1 ghost hunter who was really serious about it, and they could see I was good at frowning. So let's face it, I'm not a barrel of laughs. But anyway, this is not a jovial story. No, the story I'm telling will prize the pants off any person who doesn't like having their brains all churned up. The first thing to do was to learn to use a spirit detectification unit called the Clacker F6. You can get it in Argos. It looks a bit like a Nintendo LX20. It was made by distant people with rapid, sophisticated, high-tech brains that think in centuries. It makes a clicking sound when there are nearby disturbances. It means that roaming ghosts are closing in. There were false alarms to begin with, like the time someone in an ancient pub called the Oily Moustache asked me to investigate sightings up by the bar of a peg-leg buccaneer who was flogged to death in 1542 for pointing a cannon at Henry VIII. I swung into action, but the Clacker F6 picked up nothing, so I knew it was only the beer talking. Next thing, a massive tramp called Brown Michael babbled on about the ghost of Ivanhoe riding a galloping war beast round Bob the Butcher's slaughterers. But the Clacker F6 stayed silent. And when I saw Brown Michael holding an empty bottle, I shouted, "Blimey, Charlie, you've been on a cocoa as well." And there were times when the Clacker F6 clicked no problem in substantial phantom situations. Like when I held Fanny Dooley's hand in a baker's shop. I loved it. The terrifying pull of stratospherical ripples. But Fanny had the heebie-jeebies when her broken doorbell ting-a-ling-a-linged and a ghostly presence entered whirling around her pikelets. And there were ructions the night I met with John the Milk. He'd had the right old shudders, trapped on 10 sides by fierce floating figures. And me, I was full of it, because I got instant Clacker F6 activity. But it was uphill for John, because next thing, he had a problem with his bum, and the milk curdled in his cows. Big time was the night at Hemlock Hall. The old home was left empty by Lord and Lady Fothergill Pike. They'd been scraping the barrel after spending all their money on safari, shooting rhinos. Then polite squatters moved in and they phoned to say they'd seen mystic shadows and heard sounds like screaming people having bits chopped off. I said, well, the Fothergill Pikes kept that quiet. So I phoned Sid the Spook, who knows his onions when it comes to old curious buildings with terrifying poltergeists flying all shapes. He said that in 1872, Lord Fothergill Pike's grandfather noticed his wife was in a gay relationship with a nanny. So he chopped them both up with a samurai sword and all their guts were hanging out.
Lovely.
Ever since, they'd been gagging for each other from beyond the grave. I was off to Hemlock Hall. Once inside, the Clacker F6 picked up intense atmospherical crackles. It was cold as a witch's lip, and restless spirits shifted, hideous and full speed. Suddenly, I saw the ghost of Lady Fothergill Pike, and I said to her, "I'll help you find your girlfriend. Follow me." And soon, the nanny was before us, all chuffed and pacified. They both said, "Thanks, serious Steve." But I said, "Don't thank me, thank the Clacker F6. Then they started smooching. So I gently closed the huge door and left them to it. Thank you.
Communities, obviously I'm not from here, I'm from Manchester, or broadly speaking, but my father and my grandfather were both down the pits, but we used to have what was called a Lancashire night, and I've never seen the equivalent in Wales. It was just old Lancashire humour with all Lancashire songs. Never seen anything quite like it. You get bits and pieces of things like this, obviously, but not quite like that. But you had a comedian who would speak in a very thick Lancashire dialect, which people were struggling to understand. People born there were struggling to understand it. But my father, who was an Irishman, because he worked at the pit, he didn't work down the pit, he was a winder, but he worked at the pit for many years, he understood the dialect perfectly, you know, he didn't have any trouble with the dialect at all. But, This is by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who I've never heard of, but just a little verse. My candle burns at both ends, it will not last the night, but all my foes and all my friend, it gives a lovely light. For somebody who's tried burning the candle at both ends, that's interesting. That was a long time ago. This is one by Dorothy Parker. By the time you swear you're his, shivering and sighing, and he vows his passion is infinite, undying. That's good, isn't it? I lost that, didn't I? Lady, make a note of this. One of you is lying. Make of that what you will. I just liked it. This is by Sylvia Plath. This will cheer you up. I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful. The eye of a little god four-cornered. Most of the time, I meditate on the opposite wall. It is pink with speckles. I have looked at it for so long, I think it is part of my heart, but it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. Now I'm a lake. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. Then she turns to those liars, the candles or the moon. I see her back and refract it faithfully. She rewards me with tears and agitation of hands. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness. It is me she has drowned, a young girl, and in me an old woman. Right towards her day after day like a terrible fish. Sorry, that's entitled The Mirror, by the way. Just should have mentioned that at the start.
I mentioned your event in...
Go on, got it by you for... Oh, right.
The Armadillos are having the launch.
I don't know what people think of this Danish, Swedish girl, Greta, whatever, but she gets right up my nose. And this is quite long, so forgive me, but I think it's wonderful. After our daughter of 15 years of age was moved to tears by the speech of Greta Thunberg at the UN the other day, she became angry with our generation, who have been doing nothing for 30 years. So we decided to help her prevent what the girl on TV announced of massive eradication and the disappearance of entire ecosystems. We are now committed to give our daughter a future again by doing our part to help cool the planet 4 degrees. From now on, she will go to school on a bicycle because driving her by car costs fuel, and fuel puts emissions into the atmosphere. Of course, it'll be winter soon, and then she will have to go by bus. She will want to go by bus, but cycling through the freezing builds resistance. Of course, she's now asking for an electric bicycle, but we have shown her that the devastation caused to the areas of the planet as a result of mining for the extraction of lithium and other minerals used to make batteries for electric bicycles. So she will be pedalling or walking, which won't harm her or the planet. We used to cycle and walk to school too. Since the girl on TV demanded we need to get rid of our dependency on fossil fuels, and our daughter agreed with her, we have disconnected the heat vent in her room. The temperature is now dropping to 12 degrees in the evening and will drop below freezing in the winter. We have promised to buy her an extra sweater, hat, gloves, tights and a blanket. For the same reason, we have decided that from now on she only takes a cold shower. She will wash her clothes by hand with a wooden washboard, because the washing machine is simply a power consumer. And since the dryer uses natural gas, she will hang her clothes on the clothesline to dry, just like my parents and grandparents used to do. Speaking of clothes, the ones she currently has are all synthetic, so made from petroleum. Therefore, on Monday, we will bring all her designer clothing to the second-hand shop. We have found an eco-store where the only clothing they sell is made from undyed and unbleached linen and jute. Also, can't have clothes made with wool because the emissions from farting sheep are supposedly causing bad weather. It shouldn't matter that it looks good on her or that she is going to be laughed at dressing in colourless, bland clothes and going without a wireless bra. But that's the price she has to pay for the benefit of the climate. Cotton is out of the question as it comes from distant lands and pesticides are used on it. Very bad for the environment. We just saw on her Instagram that she's pretty angry with us. That's not our problem. From now on, at 7 p.m, we will turn off the Wi-Fi and we will only switch it on again the next day after dinner for 2 hours. In this way, we will save on electricity, so she's not bothered by electro stress and will be totally isolated from the outside world. This way, she can concentrate solely on her homework. At 11 o'clock in the evening, we will pull the breaker to shut the power off in her room, so she knows that dark is really dark. This will save a lot of CO2. She will no longer be participating in winter sports to ski lodges and resorts, nor will she be going on any more vacations with us, because our vacation destinations are practically inaccessible by bicycle. Since our daughter fully agrees with the girl on TV that CO2 emissions and footprints of her great-grandparents are to blame for killing our planet, what all this simply means is that she'll also have to live like her great-grandparents. They never had a holiday, a car, or even a bicycle. And we haven't even talked about the carbon footprint of food yet. Zero CO2 footprint means no meat, no fish, and no poultry. But also no meat substitutes that are based on soya. After all, that grows in farmers' fields that use machinery to harvest the beans, trucks to transport to the processing plants, when more energy is used, and then trucked to the packaging canning plants, and trucked once more to the stores. And also no imported food, because that has a negative ecological effect. And absolutely no chocolate from Africa, no coffee from South America, and no tea from Asia. Only homegrown potatoes, vegetables and fruits that have been grown in local cold soil, because greenhouses run on boilers piped in CO2 and artificial light. Apparently these things are also bad for the climate. We will teach her how to grow her own food. Bread is still possible, but butter, milk, cheese and yogurt, cottage cheese and cream come from cows, and they emit lots of CO2. No more margarine and no oils will be used for the frying pan, because that fat is palm oil from plantations in Borneo where rainforest first grew. No ice cream in the summer, no soft drinks, and no energy drinks, as the bubbles are CO2. We will also ban all plastic because it comes from chemical factories. Everything made of steel and aluminium must also be removed. Have you ever seen the amount of energy a blast furnace consumes on an aluminium smelter? Oh, very bad for the climate. We will replace her memory foam pillow top mattress and with a jute bag filled with straw and a horsehair pillow. Finally, she will no longer be using makeup, soap, shampoo, cream, lotion, conditioners, toothpaste and medication. Face cloths will all be linen, and she can wash by hand with her wooden washing board, just like her female ancestors did before climate change made her angry at us all for destroying her future. In this way, we will help her do her part to prevent mass extinction, water levels rising, and the disappearance of entire ecosystems. if she truly believes she wants to walk the talk of the girl on TV, she will gladly accept and happily embrace her new way of life.
Very good.
Matthew.
That was very harsh about Greta Thunberg. She's 50. Okay, she's got some traits which are, I don't know.
Awful.
But, you know, she's trying.
I mean, how dare she? I mean, I recycled and have recycled all my life. I will not have a silly little 15-year-old girl telling me I'm really...
He lives in a £10 house, right? He lives in a £10
on
house.
losing battle.
You are. Yeah, you are. Send her back to school.
Okay, right. I'm going to read a piece that I've had published. I didn't bring anything from some other book. I've been totally selfish, and I'm reading something that I've written. So sorry about that. But it's from this book. This is a brand new journal out, and it's called Broken Spine. And the editors are Alan Parry and Paul Mullen, who are based in Liverpool. They're really good poets, and they've started this journal, and it's really, really, really good. I'm not saying that because my poem's in it. Separately from that, it's really good. My poem is really, really bad. That was so contrived, right? Okay.
Crack on.
Okay, where is it? Right. Okay. So this is a poem about war and how men start wars generally. So page 24. Okay, warfields. Man stands lone, hinterland. Ghosted fields, points of sky. Boots planted, stir. In senseless cold, bone flesh shudders, centred in ashen acres. A needle nerve burns black lip cheek, sliced, snagged to mucked ear hole, blood black cleaved, skin flap of shoulder. With eyes wide, arms taper down, mottled marble veins throb and shake of wrists. Mind grids compute, muscle meet micropulse, anti-freeze, regeneration. Man's skull smells its warfields. Rot in snow clings. Distant cremation fires and splintered trees captured in zoom lens to body heaps shagged with ice. It starts again. Recalibration. The plane of supremacy. Thank you. Again, purely selfishly, I'm going to read the second poem. So I'm really sorry about that. I'm not that sorry. I'm generally not that selfish, I don't think. Right. Okay, this is a recent poem, a short poem, and it's called Redemption. Ice entombs leaves, bracken, spindle from the storms. Bubbles are imprisoned, and the sheen of sheet. See your darkened shapes loom in the faint murmur of reflections. Below, the undertow is fathomless. One day, all your griefs will thaw and trickle. Released, redeemed, under open sky. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There we are.
Emerges through the haze. Youth lives in a bygone era. Dire decrepitude creeps nearer. A peerless literary sage once said, all the world's a stage. Portentous couplets on this page shed darkness on man's seventh age. Where maladies are plenty here, their ugly heads tell us to fear. When Alzheimer's starts invading, forgetfulness is all pervading. When Alzheimer's starts invading, forgetfulness is all pervading. With dangerous... I've got the Samaritan's number for you afterwards. With dentures gnashing in a glass, conversation is a farce. Glaucoma is, though none can see, a cousin of infirmity, while deafness is, I haven't heard.
Pardon?
As silent,
What was that?
as silent as it is absurd. Pardon? A cursed old father time may bring, a waistline ever burgeoning. Grey locks make the blood run cold, romance may begin to fold. Crow's feet, or a hammer blow, arthritis, a vindictive foe. Incontinence, a pest, oh dear, hissing onomatopoeia. Dribbling, one starts to dabble in stultifying games of Scrabble. Wrinkles juxtapose with specs, whilst double chins the image wrecks. Crumpling with features wizened, the very soul becomes imprisoned. Juvenescence is but a dream, life soared downhill, so it would seem. But hold your horses, our dear friend, this shall ne'er be the bitter end. We'll rescue you with food for thought from the web in which you're caught. The paralysing silver thread which golden years swirl round your head. Be neither downcast nor forlorn, for through the darkness lies the dawn. If to our verses' end you stay, love shall bloom to save the day. Though you have reached a certain age, tussle, rant, and roaring rage. If Reaper Grim raps on your door, engage him in a fearsome war. Fight tooth and nail, please stand your ground. Courage take, let hope abound. Now you're a ship, raise up your mast, and float upon an ocean vast. Let soft sea spray caress your brow, from port and starboard, stern and prow. Hold fast against life's blaring blast, and to the four winds all cares cast. Take the tiller, clasp the sheet, cleave ahead, true, brave and fleet. So drift away to a mobile phone.
Stay on, smart.
Is it mine? I think it's yours. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Hang on.
He's concerned, brother.
Help the aged,
Where were we now?
Yeah.
Right. So drift away to worlds anew, with shipmates stout, this trusty crew. Go, ride the waves that are the morrow, with insouciance, not sorrow. Glide delirious and smiling, neath cream cirrus skies beguiling. Forever beaming, live your dream, bathed in moonlight eyes agleam. Your boundless spirit shall prevail, a seas unknown you set to sail. Have a good day.
Happy birthday, Wes!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
graffiti, the harvest here west, and my harvest Fiji.
Alright, quiet now.
We have to sing that every time we wash our hands. On the voice box, guaranteed, you don't know ever of anything. I did have a little tribute to Wes, but I'm not going to do that until next time around now, because it's not as raucous as that. I remember my son when he was very small, he was saying, "Why are they singing happy birthday to E.T.?" I didn't know the aliens had birthdays. I'm going to read a short story. I'm only going to read one piece in this half. And it's really about coming to terms with new technology, getting older. It's about illness and not knowing what's going to happen. And it's also about a ghost. It's called Getting On With the Buses. I'm not completely sure, but this might have been about the time when I first accepted that I was not going to be able to drive for a while, and maybe not ever again. It had already been 3 months, and a sense of frustration had compounded the inconvenience. I referred to those damned buses to more or less everyone I knew, but I was just beginning to observe with a tinge of pleasure the people, the fellow passengers, rather than merely being aware of them as a nuisance or an intrusion. And I was still able to do my job. I could still get to where I needed to be. This place, despite its claim of city status, is still just a large town. It just took a bit longer. And this was the first time I'd been on one of the new buses. Why purple, I wondered? There'd been a lot of controversy about them, not in relation to being purple, but because they were much longer than the norm and had an articulated rubber section in the middle, a bit like the bellows of a piano accordion. All the transport nerds commended them as being revolutionary and a tribute to the vision of the Council's Transport Committee. New roads and bus lanes had to be built. The main road through the city made dangerous for pedestrians by bendy buses coming up or what are going down the wrong way, and what for everyone else was a one-way system. Cue public outcry about wasted money, what with schools and hospital wards closing. So I sat on this bus thinking two things. The first was, why was I the only passenger, considering that this was 9:15 and we had just cruised past some of the busiest bus stops in the city, the Kingsway, High Street Station, the Liberty Stadium. And secondly, I was thinking, not only was this bus purple and long and articulated, it was also very much like a sinister and darkly comic hearse. This was, of course, to me, somewhat significant. A public hearse/omnibus with me, the only slightly cadaverous passenger on my way to the hospital for an appointment, the outcome of which might finally decide my fate. I tried to smile rather than to shiver and pretended to do my crossword. I was somewhat surprised when the bus suddenly pulled up nowhere near any bus stop that I could see. An elderly man, my father as it happens, got on through the middle entry doors, which was another departure from the norm for this bus, as you didn't have to go past or pay the driver. I hadn't seen my father for a while, but he sat down next to me with no apparent second thoughts or self-consciousness. I overheard Paul say that you were going to the hospital today, so I thought I'd just catch up, just see how things were, he said. The last time we had met, we had parted in somewhat unusual circumstances. There was no real animosity between us, just a few things that should perhaps have been settled more definitely. Things thought but left unsaid. He had promised that he would be in touch, but you know the way that things can be. It never turned out that way. Where did he see Paul? He hasn't mentioned it. Paul and my dad didn't normally frequent the same sorts of places. I didn't say see, I said overheard. In the Brunswick.
I was there with Uncle Ronnie. I don't think Paul saw or overheard me. Dad looked down at the newspaper and saw the half-completed crossword. Still don't see the point in it, he said. Is it better if you finish it all or you nearly finish it and can't just get one or two? Dad could ask questions that were impossible to answer. He didn't seem interested anyway and carried on. So what are they going to do to you today? Those doctors, I mean. You know what I think about them, don't you? They make a living out of pretending they know everything, and when it's proven they don't, they blame lack of staff or overcrowding or the tobacco companies or anything else they can think of. Imagine if they were paid by results. Drive them all to an early grave, that would. I wasn't going to let him rattle me, so I asked about Mam. Same as usual, you know the way she is. Never says much, but you know what she's thinking by the way she looks at you. She misses being with you and Alex, you know, her only grandson and all that. There's nothing I can do about it, I said, is there? There's nothing I would like more. It's just the way things are. Alex misses her too, but we all just have to get used to it. We started talking about trivia, how well the Swans were doing, the allotment, my brothers, apparently safe things. But they were all potential sparks, charged particles that could at any moment set off brainstorms of blame. I was waiting to find out what I might have just done wrong. I have to go, he said. They don't let you out forever, you know. Have to be back in time or they don't let you out again for ages. They say they get worried about you. Just like it used to be with your mother, really. He smiled with what could have been bitter irony, but I suspect it was just plain nastiness. I didn't see a benefit of doubt was relevant. There's no need to press the bell, he said, as the bus seemed to stop with that swoosh. That's the modern, non-mechanical way. I'll see you again. Won't be so long next time, I hope. And perhaps I'll bring your mother. He didn't wait for a response, but got up immediately. The doors reopened and walked away without looking back or raising a hand in farewell. At the next stop, 6 people got on. They seemed to know each other and a not too gentle hum of conversation started. One woman had a bit of a screech and one of the men swore inordinately, though the others seemed to have learned to take no notice of either of them. The conductress arrived, the first time I'd seen her, and rapidly gave out what appeared to be concessionary tickets. No money passed hands. She ignored my proffered day ticket and slumped like a zombie on a seat several rows in front of me. She looked terrified in an exhausted sort of way. Looked as if she was about to faint, as if she needed someone to be squeezing and pulling the bus's accordion bellows in order to bring her air to breathe. I tried to concentrate on my crossword, but got nowhere beyond the clue that talked indecipherably about purple flowers of remembrance. At the hospital, the technician talked to me in a tone that she had refined over the years to something she perhaps imagined represented considered empathy. I really just wanted to tell her to speak up, but despite my father, it was not in my nature to be so direct. So I just listened more intently, closed and opened my eyes as directed, and tolerated without comment the satanic gooiness of the gel she used to attach the receptors to my skull. At the end, there were, of course, no definite answers. Just another appointment at another clinic, weeks away, and another threatened meeting with the doctor who knew most about these things. No escape yet from the doubt or from the purple buses. When I got home, I told my wife about what had happened at the hospital. She thought everything was just not good enough. And then, making sure Alex was out of hearing, I began to tell her about the conversation I'd had with my father. She looked at me with some concern. She was not sure I should have been taking all that medication before I even had a diagnosis. And she had, after all, held me tightly on those 2 occasions, just a few weeks apart, when I had stood under the dank skies in the cemetery as my parents' coffins were lowered with mock ceremony into the damp earth. Thank you.
Yeah, I found this one in a second-hand bookshop about 40 years ago. It's Man Friday by Adrian Mitchell. Well, I found out later he was actually a poet, though I hadn't come across him before then. And it's been a good friend ever since. Man Friday has got back to his own island, and he's telling his people about his time on the island with Robinson Crusoe. And the book's a series of conversations that they have. They have conversations about food and sport and money and all sorts of things. And it's really great, especially if you've read Robinson Crusoe, which is an awful book. And this one kind of blows it out of the water. And I really like it. This is the conversation they're having about, I've chosen this one, it's about religion, which I think is rather good. This extract might be I don't think it's too long, I think it's all right. So it was made into a film as well, but conversations don't really make good films, do they? And it was Peter O'Toole and Robin Roundtree. It was a bit wooden, but you know. He spoke of one, this is Friday speaking. He spoke of a one alone almighty God up in the sky. He spoke of a God who watched me all the time. This God lived on a cloud with his friends, many men and women with wings who played stringed instruments. These flying musicians or angels were good dead people. Although they were men and women, they did not make love at all, but were happy to make songs all day and night, saying how good the one alone almighty God was. I thought that such songs all the time might prove boring to God. But Master said this was not so, that such praises were always pleasing to him. We all know people like that. Do the angels have nothing else to do, I asked. Oh yes, said Master, for they are God's army against the forces of wickedness. They fight with flaming swords against the enemy. Who is the enemy? The hosts of hell, under the command of Satan. Ah, Master had told me about these hosts before. Satan is the chief devil of England. Master, I asked, if your God is almighty and has all the power, why does he not kill Satan now? He could if he wanted to. Of course he could, so he must have a very good reason for killing him. Perhaps he's saving him up for last. Because Master had taught me that his God was very interested in revenge. I decided to show what I meant, so I took a deep breath to make myself bigger like the God of England. Then I stamped around, wagging my finger at an imaginary Satan devil on the ground. You bad old devil, I shouted. You just wait down there. Just watch what I do to the others. And when I've finished with them, I'll bring all my angels along with flaming swords, and we'll do much worse to you. We shall push you on the ground and kick your head and hit you with our swords, and you'll feel sorry and call out, and ask to be allowed to play a stringed instrument and sing my praises, but I shall just kick you some more. That's a very mighty God, I said. Friday, you're very confused, but I think you may yet come to understand a little. There are some heretics in our country. They worship the Mother of God. They worship statues too. God doesn't like that at all. Statues upset him. And they worship an old man in Rome. They worship far too many things. What could that mean? I wanted to speak with him truly about my own people at that moment. Then the people of my island must be very bad people. We worship everything. He stopped and looked at me most carefully, making his blue eyes small. You have many gods, Friday? Oh yes, we've got gods everywhere. Gods sitting by the fire, gods playing in the surf, gods riding on the backs of goats, gods in our heads. Tell me, Friday, these gods of yours, what are they like? Oh, they're all different. Different shapes and sizes. Oh yes, every size you can. Can you see these gods? Some of them you can see. He clapped his hands like a trap closing on an animal. Then show me one, he said. That was easy. I walked over to a bunch of bananas, picked one and handed it to him. Banana. The word banana is one of the best English words I learned, and I think the tribe should use it sometimes. Anyway, Master looked at the banana, but he did not look at it with enough care and love. That's not God, it's just a banana, he said. It's just a God too, I said. But how can you worship a banana? He tossed the banana to me and I caught it. You can worship any way you like, I told Master. So long as you mean it, the God won't mind how you do it. But you eat bananas, how can you treat a God like that? Eating him. If you eat him worshipfully, the God will be pleased. All right, he said, show me another God. I pointed to him. He smiled and shook his head. You may now think of me as a god, but you know, Friday, I'm not really a god at all. It is hard to teach an Englishman. But I'm very obstinate, and I persisted. To yourself, I said, I think you're not a god yet. I don't think you worship yourself as you should. But still you are a god, whether you know it or not. It was strange, but whenever I told him anything serious, Master laughed. And of course, whenever I made a joke, he took it extremely seriously and would want to debate it by the hour. How could anyone be a god and not know it, he asked. But he did not stop for an answer. Show me one more god, he demanded. I pointed at myself. More laughter from Master. All right, I said. What does your god look like? Our Good Friday is so great that he cannot be seen by mere men. Too big to be seen, too great in every way. Well, what would he look like if men had great eyes? Master thought about that one. He had to do something else while he thought, so he tapped one foot on the ground, scratched his head with his left hand. He can never do just one simple thing at a time. A very busy man indeed. Let's see, he said. God made us in his image, so if we could see him, he would look like a human being, I expect. Like me, or like you? Master laughed. If I could see him, he said, I suppose he'd look like me. He smiled and patted me on the head. But if you could see him, perhaps he'd look like you. Only far greater, of course. So your one single God, all alone God, is really many gods. He stopped laughing. Well, perhaps he is one God who can take on many shapes. Yes, I said. And perhaps one of those shapes is the shape of a banana. Have I got time for one more?
No. Press for time.
There are writers here this evening who are good in their art, but not yet famous. To them I say, worry not, give it time. Give it the rest of your life and beyond. Some writers whose talents went unrecognized when they were alive have become famous after their death. Think of Anne Frank, Franz Kafka, Emily Dickinson, John Patrick Wordsmith. And talking of John Patrick Wordsmith, this piece is entitled Slops. Aunt Maud works as a tea lady for the Smooth Learning of Poetry Society, SLOPS for short. Society members meet at the house turned into a poetry museum. I was stunned to hear Maud's account of happenings at that very same house. Following May's extraordinary general meeting, SLOP Society members listened to a lively talk by a visiting critic. His praise of W.B. Yeats was cut short, rudely interrupted by a visit from dead John Patrick Wordsmith. Lights flickered, doors slammed, a page was torn from a Yeats compendium. Scared witless, the shocked audience waited nervously for hot sweetened tea and a few mean biscuits. They were disappointed. 2 urns were upturned, sugar was spilt, the floor was awash with fresh milk, all without rhyme or reason. What was it all about? Are the events beyond rational explanation? At last week's meeting of SLOPs, the president offered crumbs of comfort to the spooked. His speech began, Wordsmith was a sensitive soul at the best of times. Quick to take offence when alive, he's eerily irritable in death. His spirit is annoyed that he didn't reap any reward while he was still alive to enjoy it. He's famous now, but no longer fully with us. In his own lifetime, Wordsmith's work was virtually unknown. His talent went unrecognised, his artistry unappreciated. His verse was passed over, underanalyzed, seldom quoted, rarely recited. It's not from want of trying that fame eluded the once alive Wordsmith. Poetry rags returned the bard's poems in his stamp-addressed envelopes. Wordsmith was a poor, hungry man his entire frugal life. He dreamed of being well-fed, filthy rich and famous, having his face recognised in bookshops, being elected poet laureate and sleeping with poetry lovers. It never happened, at least not while he was alive and kicking. The poet died in his prime, a disenchanted, angry young man. In his last few days, he felt down and he wrote opening lines for the unfinished sonnet, You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone. He never completed the greatest work of self-pity in the English language. He got drunk instead. That is when clumsy tragedy struck. He fell off a bar stool, a broken bottle severed an artery. The wake was a sad occasion. Wordsmith watched over in hungover, out-of-body silence as the mourners moaned about the stinginess of the spread. The deceased felt insulted. All was not lost to loss. Wordsmith, though buried, was not to be easily forgotten. His bequeathed literary genius was discovered by chance. When clearing his desk into a skip, the editor of Old Wine in New Verses spied stanzas by the late, potentially great Wordsmith. The rest is history. Wordsmith's ex-face became known, but he was too dead and gone to smile. As you know, Wordsmith has deservedly been awarded the Lifetime Prize for Late Great Literature. You'd think his posthumous self would be pleased, but no. It's all too much too late. The Nobel Award was the last straw moment a skeleton turned in his grave. Wordsmith's ghost now makes maximum fuss at seances, creating mischief at Irish Mystic Society gatherings and spelling out cobblers on their giant Ouija board. The rotting poet refuses to rest in peace, impatiently awaiting the better deal that reincarnation could bring. When the Slops president finished his speech, Aunt Maud served a magnificent spread. While the guests supped fine teas and feasted on fairy cakes, the president felt a pat on the back. He turned, but nobody was there. John Patrick Wordsmith had gone.
Thanks for all your kind words. Thanks very much. As was circulated, I had planned to have a spoken word birthday in Porthcawl, but the network of people that might have come wanted me in this COVID-19 situation, and age group as well. So I decided to pull it, at least for a few months, okay? But if I do have it again in 2 or 3 months' time, okay, when this pandemic is over, then I will be delighted for anybody who wants to come. Porthcawl is quite a distance. I planned it in the green room, which has about 20-25 people. So I have to assess numbers. And I'm fully aware that Swansea is a great distance away from Porthcawl. So I extend the invitation 2 or 3 months in the future.
Okay.
And any one of you that wants to come, or a group of you, I will be enormously delighted. I'll read a few poems.
Where's the green room?
The March of Marches. It's March again, then. Another step to go. I'm kind of tired of it. Of so much long ago. Strange to keep on going. The march of busy years. Life's rhythm. In step with being. Pulsing less. Not more. No good puzzling. you say, ask what it's all about, while stars still twinkle in pretty skies, sparkling light in love's bright eyes. Still, dark thoughts test ever deeper voids, hearing every sigh and anguished cry, echoing you, perhaps just I. Too dark to see from the glittering high. It's a march of marches tracking creviced stone, cross quiet pools and raging streams of time, moving inexorable moments in fractured mode towards life, the starlight cold. Come the end of the road. Today, I met Mark and his inimitable poems, his inimitable assonance. Okay, Mark. In Astellavera, do you remember Mark?
Yeah.
So Glenn had a few months of kind of Poets and Pints.
6.5 years.
Right? On the top road. Well, I was born down the bottom road, between the canal and the River Turch, where the River Turch joined the River Tower, coming in from the valleys. Down there, between the canal and the river, I spent my first 7 years. And up on the hillside, amongst the many pits that were there around feeding the Synpit plant, where my dad was the chief engineer. Up on the hillside was a glacier colliery, a lever that went into the mountain, not down the pits, right? Glacier. And today, I met a miner that worked in Glacier Pit, knew the men that died there, 4 men in a private pit, died in 2011 there. And sadly, I met this miner and someone who lived in Ross, because she told me the day after the 4 people were killed in Glacier, a little boy was killed in Ross on the road. Sadness, right? Their life came to an end quickly. With God's grace, I've lived a long time, okay. And those people up in Glacier who died young. And the little boy that died in Ross, not far from Glacier, died aged 12. It's all luck, isn't it? All luck in life. And I thank God, and I thank you for tonight, okay? This poem I wrote, I was quite deeply affected by the death of these people in Glacier, because as a child I used to look up the hillside and saw Glacier, and I saw it. My dad knew them there. So this was no sympathy, and I'm going to indulge myself. There's a chair up there in Glacier now with the names of these people, right? David Powell, 50. Gary Jenkins, only 30. Philip Hill, 45. And Charles Breslin, 62. Grief is now. The past not gone, you know, whilst bright coal waits, laid still in tireless years, in tunnel deeps of green, harsh hills. Men still work it, lives in their hands, knowing well in their bones the killing black beneath the land. Not for war, but quiet peace, not for greed, their striving lease. 4 men now gone, and grief unfolds. My father is sad, a tale retold. Such it is, and always been, for those that live to work the seam. Glacial now, perhaps the last, but in death, not the past. Grief is now, and ever lasts. I'll leave it there.
Good for it now, and then we return for the legendary Poets and Pints. Now it's over to home and waiting for.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the first one,
Yes.
out of the bag is 111 to 150. Winner.
Don't take the wine or the chocolate.
Don't take the chocolates.
That's what I just said, all the wine.
96 to 100.
Hey!
I'm going to take the chocolate.
No cigar.
Yes.
21 to 25.
Hey! Yeah, all right.
Right.
Quick, hurry up before the chocolate goes. Oh no, not two, only one.
This one is 151 to 155. 151 to 155.
Yeah, hey, up there. What's her name? Paula.
141 to 145.
Yeah.
I've got two left.
You got the chockies then?
I got the chockies, yeah.
Hey, look at that, look. Dark milk.
51 to 55.
There we
The
are.
price,
What does she want? Lisa want? What does she have, Lisa?
36 to 40.
You're off by the ticket.
This is inside leg measurement, 36 of them, right? Yeah.
136 to 140.
Oh, I can't remember.
156 to 160.
No.
101 to 105. 101 to 105.
Mark, 105.
Closer, make it closer.
Close but no cigar.
No cigar, here.
81 to 85.
That's me.
Yeah. Oh. Cake is?
146 to 150. 146 to 150.
Come on, Phil, get it right now.
91 to 95.
Mummy.
For the old.
What's this then?
46 to 50. Oh, 46 to 50. Another box on.
14 numbers out there.
How's it up?
31 to 35.
No, it's not that one then.
Yeah, good luck.
Just missed it.
Yeah.
Are they number ones?
No, they're not. The number 3s.
Yes.
can try them if you like.
Aftershaves.
They are ones, but they're for distance. You can try them.
Me again.
No, I've always done that.
These are 2.5.
Last 2 goes, and we at the doomsday.
Yeah.
121 to 125.
Oh, I'm 50 out.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Is the last one now?
Do you want to try that?
106 to 110.
Let's chuck it down there on the pile.
Oh, there we are. There we are.
On the pile. Yeah, leave them all down there. It goes in the bag.
No.
I don't know. Actually, that is massive now. If I hold it there, so I could read that, couldn't I? If I keep it at it.
These are no good.
Try them.
Do it.
These are 3, I think.
Nobody's picked that. He's the first half bowler and he's to the start.
Not maybe.
Trying to find glasses at the moment.
I'm trying glasses on. I think the other ones are better.
I'll put it on pause for a minute. Look.
Okay, right. This one is about Haviland Cave. I think I read it a few some months ago when I was here, maybe just before Christmas. So this is called Through Fire and Ice. Fisher of cave, be a light, shade, starve, thirst, slip between worlds, tides of time's erasure. Before the flood, the sun and moon commingled in eclipse of heat and blood. Dance into flames that lick this chamber, fall into fathoms before you wake. Kneel to the lowering of the body in a hollow of rock. Shadows, faces eclipsed. Cover him in sacred ochre with charms for a dead chieftain. Shells of nerite and periwinkle, wands of ivory, a pendant comb of tusk bone, flint tools roughly serrated, torches taper, black smoke rings, dark. Now is ghost blue light. Place it all back, scatter in these rock beds a wreck of antlers, speckled bones and gnarled out teeth from time's migrations, once hoarded, then taken. Hyenas, bears, rhinoceros, herds of bison and elk. Recover the lost skulls of mammoth and red man. Assemble his half skeleton. Cover once more with ochre. Through the museum's glass with polished frame felt, blindly see these shapes shudder through fire and ice. Okay.
To Storm Dennis. So a poem about Storm Dennis called Anyone for Dennis. Sulking, skulking skies stalk prescient inhabitants. Nebulous, amorphous cumulus accumulates. Much mulched, moss mushy, mosh messy, mismatched, mishmash, masses must mesh amongst most morose, misty mystery. Murky opacity's imminent immensity seemingly draws close and clothes mony many and dingy invisibility. Eerie ethereality resembles a solitary entity in its entirety, nihilistic, misanthropic, messianic. This ginormous, diaphanous colossus is ominous omnivorousness. Metaphorical Mr. Monster masters matters meteorological, musters mustard menace. Dennis despises, despoils, douses dusk-dowsy denizens, drenches erstwhile estival visions. His dispiriting darkness dismisses magnanimity, disseminates misery, embodies malignity. Apricity's formerly brimming brio disintegrates. What a demonic nemesis Dennis is. He appears apoplectic, apocalyptic, an apparitional, attritional animal in a tale apocryphal. The slapped, dashed, bushed, crushed through dying days, as jouissance dies. Ascertain just curtains for certain, deeply droopy drapes, birth, inspiration, ironically only for sepulchral innovation. Dizzy drizzles, drum drubbing, drip, drop, drab dribs, dribble, dimple, dampening despondency. Rueful rainfall cruelly cascades onto doleful souls, next to becks. Torrents, turbulent torment, feels ineluctable. The deplorable debacle terminally mires some twixt undesirable despair and purgatorial turmoil. Mere rears meander o'er morasses, arching archly around our arc. Truly unruly rivulets garner anger, pour power, lower, darker, grow starker. Ever more rapacious, never more audacious, alacritous rapids quickly leak, look like. A catastrophic, hyperbolic deluge empties dead dire, iron heavy heavens. Watery indefatigability streamrolls unseen streets. Seamless seaminess seems as ceaseless as swirling swell. Sea sanguinity recede whilst calamitous celeritus seas splish splash splosh, bish bash bosh. Waves weave, siring, spiralling chagrin, begetting concomitant lachrymosity. Tow towards towering torrid tides, tired, teary, tyros, tarry. The weary, wail serenely, whirl funereally, whisked amidst whooshing flash floods. Bitterly battered, besplattered, all fall. Galloping, golloping white horses, hearses near. Impelled by inimical currents, forlorn folk can be found, floundering, foundering. Bolshy, briny, glugs, gurgles, dragoons, the duck-like disconsolate who waddled widdershins. Quaking, quacking, quack quirkily, amid madly muddy Armageddon, an anatine line bobs, discombobulated. Blobby, wobbly, they wade away as woebegone one, then bubble by bubbles, babbles in a biblical story brook. Thank you.
And there's no but what's the other question?
I want to read an old one today. Recently, I've been trying to help someone who's been a heroin addict for a number of years, and they were in hospital with sepsis when I found them, following an injection site, and begged for help. So I took her to my home and tried to help her and detox her, hoping for help from the services. Those answers were, there was a 6 months waiting list, and you could buy some heroin and give it to her in your home. So wow. You can imagine my answer to that. Would you have heroin in yours? How much is it? No was the reply. Well, just leave it out on the street then. Wow. But it'll be 6 months for help. So this poor person struggled for 2 months, but eventually the call of the heroin got to her. But it reminded me of a poem I wrote when I was in working in the prison service, and it's called The Addict. Sullen eyes, sorrows hiding in the shadows, the bluest of blues turned into the darkest night, his life experience hiding in their depth, dark rings surround them, testament to his pain. Made darker by the void of colour in his skin, pale clay-coloured skin stretched over skeletal frame, no evidence of adult development, no whiskers to shave. Tortured boy-like features look at me. 8 stone and 6 foot tall, long limbs stretching out awkwardly, again void of the adult form. Gangly arms stretching out, pleading for help. His story unfolds. Born into a hostile world, addicted at birth, mother an addict, dad, who knows, passing trades to pay for the next fix. His first hit, cannabis for breakfast to go to nursery school. No food in the house. This is the general rule. Have a puff of my fag. It'll make it better. Go to school, they'll feed you there. I've got money to earn, wages to get. I need to score. I feel like shit. No games in his home or party teas. No toys to play with or stories at night. No one to tuck him in and kiss him goodnight. The occasional cuddle, but of the wrong type. A good little learner to help mummy out. If she keeps getting in needles, then she won't shout. He's getting older, now aged 10. A gift for his birthday. Sister mixes the score, injected him with heroin, and this addiction is born. Help did come his way now and again. Teachers concerned informed the authorities, but to what end? Family churned out, children split up to foster parents. Some would scream and hit out. This little lad did not know how to behave. His body still dependent on drugs. His little body aching with craves, his mind in turmoil needing to shout. He said deep inside he wanted to stay, but he needed to get home to look after his mum. He knew how to get there and what had to be done. He sits here before me, aged 25. He knows life expectancy is drawing nigh. No veins left to inject, 1 or 2 between his toes. I'll never be a father or have a normal life. Heroin's addiction has taken that choice. A couple of years to live life drug-free, look after my mum, she's in a bad way, and to feel what life offers when drugs are taken away. I write this story. This young man is not alone. To many I have heard with stories forlorn. To many lives taken over by drugs. These people don't wake up thinking, I'll become an addict today. I'll give up my life and throw it away. A nuisance I'll be to society's throng. I will live life of crime and do nothing but wrong. It's easy to judge and call all addicts scum. It's easy to pass derogatory comments and frown. And it's easy to say, well, just put them all down. So,
A couple of days ago it was St. David's Day, and now it's National Book Day. I hope this poem links the two. It's a cento, which is a patchwork poem, and every line is a line from a different poem. And I'm starting with a Naira in the 8th century, and I'm ending with Rhoda Thomas, who many of you know. So every line is from a different poem by a different poet, covering 1200 years of the poets of Wales. Cento for the poets of Wales. True is the tale death confronted them, where trees and herbs did watch and peep. A tranquil turns by nature's rule, all pleasure and all trouble, without affection, hate or wrath, would never again leave those fields of suns in the man-melting night, where we waited for buses that are never on time, when angry granite outcrops raged at stars until radiant the oneness cooled. The grand stadium looms, and with every cast of the dice there is a moment here among the people once captured in pictures in the dark hours of the morning with a certain exquisite perception and emptiness that's never healed. And staying on the theme of books for World Book Day, this book was published this week. It's an anthology of poets. There's many great poets in here. Jonathan Edwards, Thomas Owen, Des Manny, Tim Evans, loads of poets, and of course myself. and it's edited by Mike Jenkins. And I say this not just because he chose my poem, but he is a scholar, a gentleman, and an acrobat. No, that's on Kung Fu, isn't it? Anyway, here's the poem that's in there. And of course, I have to say about this poem is a disclaimer: any similarity to an actual dynasty of Welsh politicians is purely intentional. The boyo who lost his shape. Here is a tale from the Mabinogion, sang to me by the bard and Iron of Neil, who could recast his shape. Just as a man on a hot day casts off his cloak, so Neil could shift his shape. This was a gift from the other world. In the comrades' land, he looked like a fire-breathing red dragon. But he became a dead sheep in Saxon realms. When the Iron Lady of the Anglers was attacked by the Westlanders, he became a bag of wind and saved her. He could even make himself invisible. The men on the Hollow Hills did not see him at all during a year and a day of war. He changed from Briton to Roman, and they called him great in their councils and capitals. He had the command of the nature of all animals. He spent much time in the form of an old goat, but his favourite shape was that of a European fat cat. However, when the Empire of Rome was cast from the shores of Albion, he was reduced to a sad, wet rag. His finest trick was to turn himself inside out, and people thought it was scarred ermine, and they called him a true lord. He even passed his powers on to a second generation, and the son is like the father in every way. One day Neil was trapped by a mirror, and there he saw he had no skin left, and his skull was a gleaming jewel. No similarity to Lord Bedwetter, of course. It's the surname. Heather?
Yay!
Yeah, this will cheer you up. I haven't been here for a while because of all the sploshing and the splishing and climate catastrophe and all the rest of it. And I think, apart from all the deserts and everything that's happening, stopping me getting to poetry nights is probably the worst thing that climate catastrophe is doing or has done. It's a bit sad. Anyway, this is, I've written this, it's a work in progress because it keeps moving about, and you know how poems do when you're trying to bloody write the things. Anyway, so I haven't quite nailed this one down yet, but anyway, I'm going to share it with you. It's called A Moment. In a sea of black, a speck of dust momentarily glows. Light breaks the night into black and white. Hurtling comets crash, throwing liquid magic, heaven sent, into poison clouds, to crystallise in scarlet skies, and a single moon rose. What were the chances? Then moon-spun tides crashed, black, white and blue, receded, crashed again, causing chaos among the chemicals, creating newness, until life twitched, out of molecular dances. Microbes busied for so many millennia, sucked and shut the poison out of shape, until air began, and breath entered the equation nanoseconds ago. Life hummed into its unwritten rhythms, spirals and rhymes. Life twitched, then swam, then crawled in time. A speck of black, blue, white and green hurtled through darkness for maybe nearly forever. The poison twisted into thin air, leaving a soft liquid, buried, beware. Life crawled, swam, flew, and walked. The bipedal gardeners, hunters, changers, farmers, gatherers, the makers, the ones who noticed, the ones who talked, the ones who shared. Part of the pattern, careful of the pattern, for maybe forever, if we had cared. What a force for good we might have been. But a few, so very few, took over, to hold it all in their fists forever, their universal wallet, while we wallow in the waste of a warming world, their greed obscene. Saw the potential, release the poison, their special friend, free once more to choke and kill, and have dominion of all the skies, bring back chaos, the planet's end, life's demise. Revenge for its cruel imprisonment, destroying the pattern, unravel the spiral, burning the magic that was heaven sent. So now we hurtle to a different tune, the rhythm, the pattern ripped, the rhythm torn, the magic burned, the balance tipped, homesick for a world we lost and for another that may never be born. Towards our children's future when chaos will become again. On the planet's neck our own hot breath, two futures lie ahead, one life, one the ashen grey of death. Only one speck-load life among a billion more, desert, derelict and devoid. Only one gave life, there'll only be one destroyed. Our speck of black, green, blue and white, hurtling through the poison night, towards a certain future for us all, and last for a better one, we fight.
Feels like it's been a long winter. And, this is a song that looks forward to summer. A song recorded by Linda Ronstadt. Like a lion in the winter, I can hear the summer call. Like a ship out on the ocean made of stone. Sometimes when I get lonely, I could swear I hear your voice. The nights are cold when you don't keep me warm. When I first saw you, I first loved you. The song that I sang to the fire in your eyes. Somebody told me it wouldn't be easy, and you carried that lie for the devil to see. Some sail rivers deep and muddy, some sail rivers clear and cold, but the river that I'm sailing goes to sea. Sometimes I feel weary, sometimes I feel old, and sometimes I wonder if you think of me. But when I first saw you, I first loved you, and the song that I sang to the fire in your eyes. Somebody told you it wouldn't be easy, and you carried that lie for the devil to see. Like a lion in the winter, I can hear the summer call. Like a ship out on the ocean made of stone. And sometimes when I get lonely, I could swear I hear your voice. For the nights are cold when you don't keep me warm. Yes, the nights are cold when you don't keep me warm. Paul.
Thank you, Mark.
Right. This is one of my favourite books. I've kept some of my childhood books because they were so delightful. This one is beautifully illustrated as well. It's a delight. I'm thinking of a book to bring tonight. This sort of leapt out of me really as one of my childhood favourites. I think I read every single horse book in the library in Carmarthen, and then started collecting my own. So I'll read the back, some of the backs, you know what it's about, and then I just read a little excerpt from it. So, thank you again for the glasses. Wow, it was really good. Okay, just off the coast of Virginia lie the islands of Shincoteague and Assateague. On Assateague, ponies run wild all the year except on pony penning day, when the men of Shincoteague come over to round up the herd, and they go over in boats. Anyway, the wild and beautiful Phantom had always escaped them, hence her name. And her name, she's a mare, and she has a map on her shoulder, which is her withers, just for you non-horsey lot. Okay, because they'll be referred to in a little bit. I'm going to read to you. Gosh, I can feel the excitement, just the thought of reading this little bit. Right there, I'm suddenly back to being a young pony mad girl. Anyway, the whole book is about two children, Paul and Maureen, brother and sister. They live on this island, and they row over to the other island where the ponies are, the smaller island. And these places exist, as do the wild herd of ponies that exists on here. Anyway, this story is amazing because it's of a simpler time. You know, they're out there getting the seafood on their shores, and these two live with their grandparents, and it's just a delight, the whole story. And the whole book describes you know, how they actually do manage to finally catch this elusive mare, their struggle to get her, to tame her. And lots happens in the book, but I'm going to the end because I doubt any of you will ever want to buy it and read it. So I'm not plot spoiling. Okay, so here we go. I just read a little bit from the end. And the stallion of the island, the dominant stallion, is called the Pied Piper because of his very loud, ringing, bugling call. Okay.
Sounds like you, Mark.
At exactly the moment when Maureen turned Phantom over to Paul, there was the sound of a ringing neigh in the distance. It speared the morning stillness. It seemed to come not from the sea, but from the Spanish galleon back across the ages. Phantom's ears pricked. She jerked her head in the direction of Assateague Island. Tremblingly she listened. The bugle came again, strong and clear. It brought Grandpa Beebe bounding over the gate, running toward Phantom. "It's the Pied Piper," he yelled. "He's coming to get the Phantom." Paul and Maureen strained their eyes toward the island of Assateague, but all they could see were the white spumes from the billows and skeins of mist rising from the sea. Then, suddenly, one of the whitecaps seemed to be flying free. It was the foaming mane of the Pied Piper racing in with the billows. "Get on Phantom's back," Grandpa called. "Whack her, Paul. Whack her hard, Maureen. Get that gate open." Her heart pounding, Maureen flew to the gate. As fast as she could, she let the bars down at the same time, shoving Misty back. Paul, she cried, get a handful of her mane, ride her toward Misty. With a gasp of anguish she looked back. Paul was not trying to hold Phantom. He was slipping the wiki out of her mouth. He was giving Phantom her freedom. Paul, screamed Maureen, hold her, don't let her go. But her words were lost. The Phantom's whinnies were high with excitement. The Pied Piper was heading straight for her, his neck thrust forward, his head down, his eyes hidden by that long creamy foretop. Grandpa waved his hat, trying to head him off, his arms whirling like a windmill. The Pied Piper veered round him. Then he snorted and trumpeted to the heavens. Paul, bellowed Grandpa, you'll be trumped down, get out of the way. But Paul stood there as if caught in the Pied Piper's spell. For a moment, just a moment, the Phantom hesitated. She looked obediently to Paul, her master. Then that wild bugle sounded again, and it seemed to awaken some force within her, creating a curious urging in her mind, and a shudder of excitement went through her, and she twisted her body high in the air, as if she was shaking herself free of fences that imprisoned, free of lead ropes, free of stalls that shut out the smell of pines and the sound of the sea. An impatient whinny escaped her, and she whirled past Paul, then ran flying to meet the Pied Piper. What I love about it is the ending, because this isn't the ending, there is a little bit more to it, but I felt I'd read enough to you. So, but what I love about it is, to me now as an adult and a conservationist, you know, when this book was written, you know, animals were in pens, in zoos, pacing, and they were given this wild mare back her freedom, you know, out of love for her. And now, of course, you know, people are trying to rehabilitate. She'd already been living free, so she swam back across the sea. And they did go on to make a film about this as well, using the foal, Misty. There was a film made, and that's another huge story. But yeah, I thought about it today, and I thought it's a poem, not a poem, it's a story for our time, isn't it? Lovely. Yeah.
What's it? Who is it?
Alone with beauty. Alone by the lakeside, the stars will shine tonight, for springtime walk this morning through mist that yields to light, and day won its battles with winter's fading night, as nature's willful needs taints beauty's blemished sight. Alone on the mountain where air is fresh and free, and breezes tell wild tales of places that they see, travelling distant worlds to mountains silently, sharing beauty's vistas from cliff to blue-green sea. Alone in the forest where leaves gossip in green, a glade of bluebells listen in sunshine's bright lit scene, painted in harmony as peace has always been. For beauty has its ways to cleanse a pictured screen. Alone with loneliness, I ponder life's sad fact, that words hold no comfort on life's relentless track. When pity knows life's needs are scribed deep in death's pact, weeping crystal tears for beauty clawed and hacked. Alone with beauty, when morning's back, bluebells listen to a ruthless rat.
Sounds right. Sounds right.
There we are.
Action.
Had to respond to a challenge to write tercets, 3-line verses. I don't know if this met the challenge, but it's to do with water. It's entitled Water. The problem with water is that it's wet. The more there is, the wetter it will get. Nothing can be done to stop worse floods yet. The real question is, when will rain stop? It's gone on for long with gales on top. Soon will destroy mankind's evolving crop. They say it's all due to climate change. If so, there is much now to arrange for a world that would be differently strange. There are many that are deeply worried, particularly those with homes slurried, and others in fear and cold, although ferried. Given courage and thought, all can be solved. With fortune and luck God has devolved. But many are those who think not involved. So nothing, friend, will ever be resolved. Round and round money will still be revolved, until by death all will be solved. That, indeed, is how life has evolved. The planet moves on, with us dissolved. Water, pity. I have only one ambition left in writing verse, okay? I don't call them poems really. I'd love to write a song that I was proud of. I've written many songs, written many of them, because melodies fall easily when the words are musical, really. I wrote this many years back. It's a love song, because love songs fit melodies very easily, really. The game is over. The game is over. It's reached its end. Our lives are one. Let's not pretend. There's no dream left in time without your hand held soft in mine. You know me now, right or wrong, not all good or always strong, but what we are is ours to reach, ours to love, and ours to teach. Time to share the season's skies, time to share our golden lives, time to share the hours and days, time to share time's rainbow ways. What more said than words can say, that greets our love like flowers in May, or match our joy with starry light to paint our lives like wondrous night. The game is over, it reached its end. Our lives are one, let's not pretend. There's no dream left in time without your hand held close in mine.
About 7 years ago we started a poetry evening in Swansea called Talisman, and I wrote this one night after going home. That's the sort of thing that you could write about any poetry night. It's about 8 people who were reading on that night, and 3 of them are actually sitting in this room now. You. You. And Wes. This is just a little, really very short description of 8 people that evening. And Wes's lines about Wes have actually given the title to the poem, and it's called Happy Holy Hosannas. And here I go, he said, captain, spirit of a family team. I shoot, I score. And in those evenings I see the same spirits, hiding, preening, convulsed and compelled, or hiding their sadness behind the stern covers of the books of their lives, narrating at last their stories of their own short days. There, a man who has saved 1,000 lives, but reads like the passing of a minor storm, selecting with care a raincoat, knowing he'll not need its warmth as others do. And next a man who disdains the pussy willow and disregards the dog-eared days, to trumpet instead his own disasters, his self-fulfilling near misses. And there, a man of bulk, with shoulders that bear the weight of his dents, his prolex, his unceasing negotiations, his shelving and delving, his thirst for language and sound. And a woman, the modern day Mary, not young nor old, with the quietest and sweetest voices, recording the quietest and sweetest passages of life and love and true history. And then her friend, somehow with a new life that makes nonsense of a discarded old, but vibrates with the tension and the relief of the telling. And next to me, in his turn, an old friend who sighs with memories of kissed and brazen nipples and secret and fern-filled fields. And he with the voice of happy, holy hosannas, yet firm and choral, despite the march of years and the creeping, crawling profane. And to the drone of silent expectation, the man who turns first the eyes, then the necks, then the whole bodies with slow incision, and burning truth, and no colour of flamenco flourish. Well, I dreamed of you all last night, when the words and gestures had fled from sight but not from mind, and the rain outside was spreading, and dampened mist that melted your images and soaked them into the welling ground.
There's no nipples in it. Not many anyway. But there is Latin. And bet you will get it wrong. I always do. Story for Mrs. Moon, the monster of the north. I am bold Trapper John. I trap animals, deadly, strange and powerful. The animals are taken to peculiar zoos so scientists can study them and get their microscopes out. As I write, I'm returning from the Arctic Circle on a ship called the Blizzard's Kiss. It's a top secret, high security ship, fitted with ultra-modern deep-sea features and a top-of-the-range crane. The ship carries a massive cage made with thick steel bars. Inside the cage is a trapped monster, the monster of the north. Now I know what you were thinking. You were thinking, what is this monster like? Well, I can tell you, it's the most weirdest and terrifying thing I've ever caught. And if you saw it, you'd go berserk. And you'd probably get a warm lump in the back of your pants. But I am Trapper John, all fearless and living the dream. So listen to the tale I have to tell. It began when the king of the North Pole needed my help to capture a huge mystical beast that was crushing igloos and eating people right, left and centre. I had a lot to think about, so I did my own research. I read that 10 million years ago, distant worlds exploded and mangled body parts of alien creatures spun around the cosmos. Some dropped to Earth and landed in slush. Then Earth turned to winter and the body parts were locked in ice. But then the planet warmed and the ice began to melt. Then last summer, climate scientists went north to where the ice crackled and cracked. One day they spotted curious shapes in slushy blue pools. They saw huge arms and legs with 12-inch claws, heads with grim red eyes the size of hot cross buns, and two twisted 10-foot torsos. There was bristly hair and scales and spikes. The scientists cringed and the smell knocked them back a bit. Then someone from Boffin College, Oxford said, and this is where the Latin comes in, these are the scattered bits of the intergalactical Clamistovarcum trumuncatatus. Which is a kind of gigantic crosscodati petrodactyla that lives in the jungles of Peru. Then they watched with buckled knees as suddenly the torsos, heads, arms and legs twitched and slowly moved towards each other. Next thing, there were loud sparks as the parts shifted full tilt and the air around them flashed with illogical space plasma laser fields. Then, like a miracle, the parts were joined to make again the creature so horrific that the flabbergasted scientists legged it back to the ship and they told the captain to up anchor and beat it chop-chop. And because they didn't want people at home to know how scared they'd been, they told them that they only came home because the northern lights were getting on their nerves. So I sailed to the north on my deadly quest with whistling big winds and snow clouds scudding. In my purple luxury puffed up jacket, I was soon on the snow driving an electrical sledge. Thermal sat-nav showed me the way and I quickly spotted the beast. It had gone to work on a polar bear, chewing its head off and gulping its guts down. I drove towards it firing darts from my long-range tranquilizer rifle. I shouted out, "Have a drop of that, big boy." But the darts all missed and the beast showed its teeth and ran straight at me. Then suddenly, a submarine rose through the ice. Then suddenly, a submarine rose through the ice and a sailor poked his head out and he saw the beast and he said, What's going on here then? And the beast ploughed into the submarine and knocked itself out. With no time to lose, I dragged it to the ship using chains, and the ship's superior crane lifted it into the cage. But wait, I must stop writing now. The captain's hit the panic button. He's screaming because the monster of the north has woken up. He says it's biting the bars of the cage and they've started to buckle and split. I bet he's got a lump in the back of his pants.
Well, talk to every child from my age down. So sure you can.
There was another monkey lived in a big, tall tree. She lived with Daddy Monkey, as happy as could be. They had a little monkey boy who was their joy and pride. But listen when I tell you, and Tom Monkey died. He was such a tiny monkey. It's such a good day. One day he went out walking and fell into a pit. Mother Monkey saw him. She cried and cried and cried. But suddenly she picked him up. But quietly he died. Then poor old Mother Monkey, she was so very sad. He was the only monkey boy, the only one she had. She then put on a bonnet and went to the shop so fast and bought another monkey boy, exactly like the last.